You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. Oh, my gosh. We've got a brilliant scholar of about 20-plus books on the show with us today, and we're going to be talking about biblical Armageddon. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And, you know, we could find out maybe when we're going to hit the wall, which I think is next week from I don't know, just kind of the way I'm seeing the news going. I don't know. It could happen at any time now. So hopefully we'll get to the end of the episode and we can at least get, this in the can before Armageddon hits. We have an amazing scholar on the show. He'll be talking to us about today. But in the meantime, the guilt and shaming must start for the plugs of the Chris Voss Show. Please refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Please, for the love of God, refer the show. No, I'm just kidding. Go to iTunes. Give us a great referral of 5 stars over there. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Go to our big YouTube channel and LinkedIn, the LinkedIn newsletter. It's killing it over there. Go to LinkedIn and check that out as well. Follow me over there as well. And now, without further ado, we're going to be talking about the end of the world. In a world gone mad, Jesus is coming on March 21st, 2023 with Armageddon coming to your house near you. Anyway, Bart D. Ehrman is on the show with us today. His newest book came out March 21st, 2023, Armageddon, What the Bible Really Says About the End. So now we're going to finally find out, gosh darn it, and I know you've all been wondering. He is the author of more than 20 books, including the New York Times bestselling Misquoting Jesus and God's Problem. I've seen that movie. He has a few problems he needs to fix. Can we get some work done down here, God? Bart is the James A. Gray Distinguished Professor of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and is a leading authority on the Bible and the life of Jesus. He's been featured in Time and has appeared on Dateline NBC, The Daily Show, and Jon Stewart's CNN, the History Channel, major NPR shows, and other top media outlets. And now he's finally reached the pinnacle of media outlets, The Chris Voss Show. Welcome to the show, Bart. How are you? I'm doing well, thanks. It's great to have you. Give us your .coms wherever you want people to find you on the interwebs and get to know you better.
So two of them. One is just bartehrman.com, and the other is ehrmanblog.org.
There you go. So when does the Armageddon happen? And when should I set a Zoom time for this or something?
Yeah, well, you might want to set the Zoom time before that.
Oh, that's right. Probably an hour before.
You're going to be facing Zap time, so you need to get the Zoom out of the way. Yeah, well, so my book is about the book of Revelation mainly, and about what the Bible has to say about when the end is coming. Mm. And most people read the book of Revelation. Most people don't read the book of Revelation because it's too bizarre and crazy for them. But the people who do read it think it's predicting what's going to happen sometime, this year. Mm. And people have always said that. And in my book, I try to show why everybody's been wrong about that, and why everybody will be wrong about that. It's because that's not what the book of Revelation's about.
There you go. What the Bible really says about the end. The Bible's kind of like the Constitution. Everybody seems to quote it, but then you're like, where is that exactly? And they're like, and you're like, have you read that thing lately? So I think it's great that you're on the show and you're establishing on this. What is Armageddon for the layman who maybe doesn't know what Armageddon is, or, they don't read much, or they're watching the Kardashians?
Yeah, right, exactly. So Armageddon,
isn't that one of the signs of the Armageddon, I think?
Well, some people think so, or hope so, that the end's coming soon. So Armageddon is it's a reference in the book of Revelation. It's a reference to a place outside of the town Megiddo, which is in Israel.
Oh, okay.
And in the Old Testament, it's a place where a lot of battles happen. And in the book of Revelation, it's where the final battle happens, when Christ combats the armies of earth and wipes them out.
So in that sense, combats the armies of Earth. Is that like military armies, or is that like satanic or demonic armies, or is that just the Kardashians?
Yeah, well, they're in the front guard. So it's not clear. It's definitely earthly armies. They're gathered by the Antichrist figure. He's not called the Antichrist. He's called the Beast, but he's Christ's enemy in Revelation, and it appears to be a human. And the armies of Earth gather to assault heaven, and they get creamed. With not much of a battle.
Well, I mean, you're taking on Jesus, right?
Exactly.
God,
He's got angels and things.
He's got the all-powerful being and omnipotence and, that sort of thing going for him. It seems like a thing that you wouldn't want to fight the dude,
Yeah, well, some people are arrogant.
That's true.
They think they can do anything.
Yeah, I've got one of those in the mirror. Is the head of that army named Kim by chance? I don't know why. Seems like the Kardashians are accidentally going to be the callback joke of the show.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Well, somebody's got to do the callback. So you go in depth about what Revelations really says. Like, you're just not one of those people who's just throwing around quotes and. Like I had one time a guy who said that we don't need the Constitution, we just need the Bill of Rights. And I was like, do you understand how that works? Yeah. But go on.
Yeah, all right. No, well, it is interesting how similar biblical interpretation is to constitutional interpretation. I mean, you have the very same battles about whether you go back to the original meaning, the meaning of the original authors, whether the times have changed and so it doesn't apply anymore. These are the kind of things that you get. But with Revelation, it's very simple to go into it and kind of cherry pick verses you want to make them say what you want them to say. But scholars, of course, don't do that. Scholars read this thing in Greek, the original language, and they study it intensely, every word, and they put it in its own historical context. And when you do that, you realize it does not mean what most of your favorite televangelists say it means. It means something quite different. And so I try to explain in my book what that is.
There you go. I've heard all my life the end of times are coming. I grew up in a religious cult, and I was told that, it's coming any day now. And then like 2000 was a big day. It was supposed to come. I think the Seventh Day Adventists have tried to hit a few marks of when the final days are and missed. And so a lot of people try and nail this down. When are this happen? Every time there's like a war or an earthquake or some sort of major event, I always hear from my religious family, it's the end of times, you better repent, Chris. And I'm like, no, hell no, sinning's fun. So there's that. So what is the truth behind when Armageddon comes, or is there a date on this thing? Like,
yeah, well, every day is the date.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So, in the 1970s, when I was in college in the 1970s, the best-selling book of nonfiction, using the term somewhat loosely here, the best-selling book of nonfiction was called The Late Great Planet Earth. And it was the best-selling book in the English language of any kind, not religious book. I mean, the best-selling book of the 1970s of nonfiction. And it predicted that the end was going to come by the end of the 1980s. And it had a very specific biblical reason for it. A lot of fundamentalists are these days a little bit reluctant to pick an actual date because it's too easy to be shown you're wrong. Yeah. But some still do. And so the main line is the one you're suggesting, is that people say, well, it's going to be soon, and so whatever's happening now and whatever's in the headlines, that was predicted by the prophets. And that you've got that kind of line going back for hundreds of years with people saying, oh yeah, now, finally. It actually all started in the Western world with the French Revolution. That's when people started in the modern world started setting dates, because the French Revolution was so flipping crazy that everybody said, this got to be out of Revelation. This is too much.
Everyone's running around with their heads off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Cut off.
Yeah.
You can look up that joke, Gen X,
yeah.
Or Gen Z. So yeah, I mean, I have always heard rumblings of Armageddon, but usually after a night of drinking and Taco Bell. So
well,
that's a whole other matter.
Yeah,
I'm sure
no, that's not a good way to go.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the lake of fire.
Yeah, there's something that rises from the pit called Beelzebub and stuff.
Yeah,
But
right.
after that, you're pretty good. So Armageddon, why is this so misunderstood by people? Are people just trying to make money off it? Are people just, because I've heard the table pounding of like, you must repent now because tomorrow the world must end. I think that's usually the guy in the corner with the, the street corner with the sign, the world ends soon.
Yeah.
Why is this so misunderstood or misquoted?
Well, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some people do it to make the money. I mean, people like Hal Lindsey, the guy who wrote Late Great Planet Earth, became fabulously wealthy, and that wouldn't have happened if the end had come. And so, he's still going at it. He's
so hard to spend that money.
He wrote this book in 1970, and he's still on the radio saying that now the signs are being fulfilled.
Oh yeah, now.
So I think, I think some people I don't know if they do it for the money, but some people are just really convinced that God has spoken to them through the Bible, and that this is that they've figured it out finally. No one else has figured out to now, but now I've got it, and this is it. And sometimes that means a specific date. More often these days, it just means you better repent because it's coming soon. Russia's just invaded, and all hell's going to break out, and you got to be ready.
Yeah. I mean, they're like, World War III is happening. And, everyone knows that doesn't happen for at least 2 more years, right? We all know that. Usually after a night of Taco Bell and vodka. So you basically talk about the prophecy and the symbolism, the violent imagery, the syntax. What about like the whole, isn't there like a part in Revelations? I watched Omen too many times. Isn't there a part where they're like, the Omen kid comes along and, he starts, the weird chorus orchestra kicks in with the, whatever. I can't do it. Saying I should probably have that set up in sound. But isn't there a thing where the whole orchestra joins in and, it's the whole singing and screaming and stuff that goes on. And, he runs around for a while and then Jesus comes.
Yeah, no, the Omen thing is, that's kind of a bit of a modernization. So the Antichrist figure in the Book of Revelation is not a kid; he's not like born. This is the thing: is if you read the Book of Revelation as predicting our future, then you can come up with all sorts of things. That the Antichrist is X, Y, or Z. That in the Second World War is Mussolini or Hitler. Lately it was Saddam Hussein. When I was in college, a guy wrote a book saying it was Henry Kissinger. So you come up with all these names, but it's a leader. It's a leader of the earth, some person. Historically, it's none of the above. It's not referring to somebody in the future. It's referring to somebody in John's own day. He's actually talking about the problems in his time. He's writing a book to people who are alive at the time. He tells us who he's writing to, and they're meant to understand what he's talking about. And the fact that 2,000 years later, half the world doesn't know what he's talking about has no bearing on the fact that they actually knew what he meant, and he meant something about their own time.
Oh, so was it the end of the world in his time then?
That's what he thought. Yeah. Oh. It's quite, when you unpack Revelation from a historical point of view, it's clear the Antichrist figure is the city of Rome and its leader, the Roman emperor, and they're the enemy that are the Antichrist that God is soon going to destroy, and he's going to take all the power and all the wealth that these damn Romans have and give them to the Christians. And so the Christians are going to take over the earth. Like Rome has now.
So is the Bible Revelations Armageddon then really in the future then? It was supposed to have happened in the past and it maybe didn't, or it did?
No, it didn't. Here we are.
He was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that happens in the Bible.
Just ruined the whole Omen series for me.
Well, I mean, it's not as exciting as saying, that Putin's the Antichrist, but I mean, the reality is Putin's not the Antichrist. I mean, he kind of is, but I mean, he's not the one John was talking about. No.
I thought I thought it was recently Elon Musk because, it says in the Bible, everyone will wear the mark, and he just started selling the mark of verified for $14.99, or maybe that's Zuckerberg, one of the two of them.
Well, the Antichrist does take over the world economy. And so, Musk, although lately it doesn't look like it's going to happen for him.
Yeah, maybe it will be Zuckerberg's Muckerberg. Right. I think that's a new name I'm using for Mr. Zuck. Maybe it'll be TikTok. Maybe the Armageddon will come with TikTok. I don't know. So basically, you've blown up everyone's bubble, and the Armageddon, if it was going to happen, it happened back in you said Paul's time. Who wrote it?
No, it's written at the end of the first century, probably in the 90s. All right, and it's an author who's very, very upset with the situation of Christians in Rome. And he's writing an apocalypse. So what people don't realize, I think, is that, most people avoid the book of Revelation, even if they do read the Bible. If they read the Bible, Revelation is the one book they're not going to touch because it's just too bizarre. But those that do read it, of course, think it's talking about our future because that's what they've always been told. But the reality is that for most of the history of Christianity, this was not understood to be a prediction of the future at all. And so it's a modern reading. And part of the things I do in my book is I try to explain where this idea comes from.
Well, that's important. I kind of, on one hand, I feel kind of relieved that oh, good, it isn't really something that's supposed to happen in the future. But on the other hand, I don't know. I guess we'll just get back to sinning because now I don't have anything to worry about. Hey, get back to sinning, damn it.
Well, what ended up happening in Christianity is they gave up on this idea that the end of the world was going to come sometime, within the next year or so. And what they did is then they invented the idea that when you die, you go to heaven or hell. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry to mention this for your sinning proclivities, but you still got a hell of a lot of trouble.
Oh, yeah, well.
In the Christian tradition, you die, okay, baby. You're going to pay the price here.
Rhino last week. It's that whole Vegas thing. I don't know. I've done a little bit of drinking and maybe a couple swearing, but that's
all right. God can live with that.
Some people, they play, they kind of play that cover the bases game with religion where they're like, well, I keep 1 foot here and 1 foot over there. And and maybe when I need to run home, I'll run home. But in the meantime, I'll work.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, a lot of my students, I teach in the South. I teach in the Bible Belt. And my students are not a lot. Some of my students are religious because they're afraid of burning in hell. I mean, they don't, it's like, it's fire insurance. And so they just don't want to, they don't want that. And so, but, and a lot of people think if there's no afterlife, well, why not party on? And so,
You know what they should do to keep me from going to hell and from doing all my sinnering? I don't know. I'm just making up jokes. They should say the Kardashians are going to be there because the problem they have right now, I mean, this is a marketing problem religion has. Right now, they're like, hey, if you do bad stuff, you're going to go to hell. And all the stuff that's fun. And all the great bands will be there, like Led Zeppelin and Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and all that satanic heavy metal stuff. And you're like, well, I'm going to hell because I love Metallica and I love Black Sabbath and I want to see them play in hell. I mean, that's going to be hot. I mean, seriously.
Well, yeah, maybe hot, but I mean, hot, seriously hot. But I mean, or you could take the Stairway to Heaven. I mean, it's
I could do that, but sometimes I played that thing backwards. I did the whole backwards thing, and I heard what it says. It says the whole 666 thing, But what I'm saying is what they should do is say the Kardashians and all the housewives or whatever stupid drama stand are going to be in hell, and I will stop sinning just to get to heaven, just to get away from them.
I got it.
I've spent a lifetime already. So speaking of 666, what is that? Famous 666 that all these great bands wrote about Satanism, and what's that all going on about? Was that something that was back then, or is that something?
All right. So in the Antichrist figure in Revelation is the John has a vision of this beast, this wild beast that takes over the earth and that everybody worships, and an angel standing by to explain what it is he's seeing. And so in the books like this, when a prophet sees something like it's just crazy and nuts, and they don't know what it is, and the angel explains it to them. And in this case, the angel explains that this beast that takes over the world that everybody worships is actually a human, and his number is 666.
Yeah.
And so the deal is that in the ancient languages like Greek and Hebrew, they didn't have a separate alphabet from their numerical system. Like we use a Roman or a Latin alphabet, A, B, C, D, but we have Arabic numerals. They use their alphabet, and so for their numbers. So, the first letter is an A, the second letter is B, and you go on, all the letters have numbers, and you can do all the numbers that way. Mm-hmm. So what he's saying is that if you add up the numbers of this person's name, it'll add up to 666. Oh. And as it turns out, the first and this person is an opponent of Christians, and he's killing Christians. And it turns out the first Roman emperor to execute Christians was the Emperor Nero. And if you spell Emperor Nero, Kaiser Neron, in Hebrew letters, the letters add up to 666.
You're ruining like every movie and every Ozzy Osbourne song ever.
I know it's not nearly as fun, but on the other hand, it's not nearly as dangerous either. I mean, part of my book is showing these people were thinking the end of the world's coming. They've done some real damage, and not just psychological damage to people who buy into it and then realize they were wrong, but actual damage in the real world. And so,
I'm glad you're on, because anytime my religious family members start going on about the end of the world, I'm just going to throw your book at them, be like, Yeah, it already went down, man. It's already over. So there's no Armageddon coming. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there may be, but it's not predicted in the book of Revelation.
Damn it.
It seems like it's coming, but it's got nothing to do with biblical prophecy.
Wow. I'll never be able to watch The Omen.
Yeah, I know. It's disappointing.
Listen to Black Sabbath over again. Tease out of the book. What else do we need to know to tease out in the book? I think we had an internet bump there. Bart, can you hear me? What else is there to tease out in the book?
In my book or the book of Revelation?
No, well, your book about the book of Revelation.
There are kind of bizarre implications for this idea that that the Bible's predicting what's going to happen in the future. One of them is that U.S. foreign policy has been affected in rather serious ways. And so in the book, I don't take a stand on the Israeli-Palestinian issue, but I do explain why evangelicals have always been in strong support of Israel. Because on the surface, why? I mean, American evangelicals think that all Jews are going to hell. So why are they supporting Israel exactly? And why are they so gung-ho for it?
Is it because Steven Spielberg makes such good movies?
Yeah, well, no, it's not. Although he did, but it's not that. It's because evangelicals interpret the Bible as saying that Israel has to be a strong nation, and that Israel, in fact, has to take over the Temple Mount and destroy the Dome of the Rock and build the temple again. Because if the temple doesn't exist, Jesus can't come back because of a verse in the Bible. And so the support of Israel by evangelicals in America and in England started in the early 19th century by people who were convinced that Israel had to become a nation, which it did in 1948, and that the temple had to be rebuilt, which is yet to happen. And so, the move of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was not religiously innocent. This was to support evangelicals who want the temple to be rebuilt.
So the temple hasn't been rebuilt yet.
No, it was destroyed in the year 70 by Roman armies, and it doesn't exist. So if you go to Jerusalem now, you go to the Temple Mount, and the Western Wall, what used to be called the Wailing Wall, is part of that's still there. The rest of it's wiped out. But on top of the mount itself, there are some religious structures, including Islamic holy sites. So if Israel doesn't take over the Temple Mount completely and drive out the Muslims, then the temple can't be rebuilt and Jesus can't return. But man, if they do that, if they do destroy the temple, the Dome of the Rock, oh my God, then you will have Armageddon. Whoa.
Well, I mean, do we want Jesus to come back yet? Because we're having a good time down here. We don't want him to, show up and be like, oh man, you guys, what are you guys doing down here? Eh? I'm just gonna flood y'all or something.
Yeah, well, laid back party animals don't want him to come back, but
give me a couple more years at Spirit Rhino.
Most of the world's having a pretty wretched time of it, and it's not good down here.
That's true.
Get me out of here. And
but I don't understand though. I feel like George Carlin right now. Like, if he's an all omnipotent God, why does he need a temple to come back? Seems like he runs the universe. He can do whatever.
Oh yeah, I know, because as runner of the universe, he predicted the temple would be rebuilt. That's why.
So he's kind of stuck.
He said it was going to be, so it's got to be.
And we got to hold him to it. Seems like he's omnipotent. I mean, doesn't he change his mind? He played that one game with Abraham and his son that one time where he's like, kill the son. He's like, never mind.
No. In the Bible, he does change in the Old Testament especially, he changes his mind a lot. But even in the New Testament, I mean, in the New Testament, you have one book, the book of 2 Peter, that's explaining why, in fact, God said it was going to be soon, but he didn't really mean by our calendar.
The Old Testament seems like a God with maybe some childhood trauma, and then he gets some therapy, it seems, and then the New Testament starts.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, the thing is, the God of the Old Testament is a God of love. And but I mean, he's a wrathful fellow a lot of time. He's a very violent book. But when people tell me that the Old Testament has the God of wrath and the New Testament has the God of love, I just ask them, have you read Revelation lately? Oh my God, you talk about violent wrath.
It's kind of wrath, violent. It's kind of weird ending to the book too. It's the Revelation's at the end, right?
Yeah, well, so it makes sense the way they organize the Bible. You start with the creation of the world in Genesis, and then you end with the destruction of the world in Revelation, and so that makes sense. But it is, the book of Revelation had trouble getting in to the New Testament.
That sounds like every episode of the Kardashians, actually.
Well, none of them's getting in. I'm telling you that. So it had trouble making it into the New Testament, and part of my book is explaining why, and then how it did get in. Because if it hadn't gotten in, the world would have been a very different place. We wouldn't have all these fundamentalists running around, for one thing.
Damn. Well, I mean, you've ruined the plot of every Black Sabbath song for me, every dark Ozzy Osbourne song, and 666 is Satan, and you ruined Iron Maiden's famous song and album, The Number of the Beast. Anything else you want to ruin before we go out here, Bart? You ruined the Kardashians too.
Well, the funny thing is that of course, fundamentalist Christians and evangelicals are really pissed off at me because I say things like this.
Wow.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's quite, but for them, I really am ruining things. And the reality is what I do, I write these books, and basically I'm just saying what historical scholars have known for a long time. There are Christian scholars who agree with me. I don't know. I'm not a Christian. I mean, I'm a historical scholar. I used to be a Christian. Yeah, no, I'm not a Christian, but there are very, very fine Christian historical scholars who agree with just about everything I say in this book. I mean, it's a violent book, and it's not. I end my book by saying that this author, in my judgment, does not actually have the gospel of Jesus. He does not agree with Jesus, and that's a rather important point. Jesus was not this wrathful, vengeful, out for blood guy, and the author of Revelation is.
There you go. Was there like one of the names of the beast was Abaddon in the Bible?
Yeah, in the book of Revelation, there are lots of weird names in the Bible, and so if you reform and kick the sin habit and enroll at Moody Bible Institute, you'll probably be given an entrance exam, and so I suggest you memorize the names.
There you go. I actually named one of my dogs Abaddon.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that was when I believed all this stuff before you ruined it. And
you didn't believe it.
thought some of it, but I wish I would have known this when I was a kid, because my mom would, put the fear of hell and fire and damnation into us as kids. You better stop being bad kids, or else Jesus is going to come and smite you. And we're
yeah. No, but a lot of the psychological damage of people thinking the Revelation's predicting the end is that there's been, for almost 200 years now, there's been this idea of a rapture where Jesus is going to come and take people out of the world so they don't have to experience all this chaos that's going to happen when the Antichrist comes. And people, there are people who, have thought just about every evangelical kid I knew in the 70s at one time or another thought the rapture had happened and they'd been left behind. It just scared the hell out of them. And it ended up being terribly damaging. I know people who are still damaged by that. I think, oh my God. And so it's just, for one thing, the rapture's not in the Bible at all. That's just made up. Yeah. No, that's really. In my book, I explain where it didn't start till the 1830s, the idea of a rapture where Jesus takes everybody out so the rest of us can suffer hell on earth for a while. That's just made up. But it's, so it's in, it's not in the Bible. It's not in Revelation, not anywhere in the Bible.
I mean, it's like there's been like TV shows and movies made about it and everything. What the heck?
Yeah. Well, look, the best-selling novel series probably of all time was Left Behind, which was, it sold, I don't know, over 80 million copies in the 1990s. And it was all about that. The rapture happens, and what happens when you're left behind. And people read this as if this is the Bible speaking. It's just some guy coming up with stuff.
There you go. Well, I mean, this is kind of a downer, because there are some days when I accidentally skip across the Kardashians, or I see some Gen Z people doing weird stuff on TikTok, and I go, please, God, can we make this stop tomorrow? Can Armageddon just comes, put us out of our misery, for the love of God? Ironically, one of your big, I think, is it one of your biggest books out of the 20 plus books you've done? It was Misquoting Jesus.
Yeah, it was the first kind of big selling book I did. And
first time you decided to piss off evangelicals?
No, I decided to piss them off before that, but that was the one that really kind of did it.
This is entertainment for an atheist right here.
Yeah.
And I think, Misquoting Jesus' story, but I think this is important because, it seems like there's a lot of abuse that goes on of Armageddon and what Jesus said and what Jesus didn't say. He's mowed my lawn every week now for years. I've never heard any of the stuff that's been quoted from him that I hear people quote. And I think it's really important that, some scholars really nail this down so that people aren't just running around saying, Jesus said this, Jesus said that. I mean, I had a quote from him here. Welcome to the jungle. It gets worse here every day. Turns out he didn't say that either. That was some song from some band. I don't know. I got nothing there. I'm just running off at some joke. So
the thing about this book, Misquoting Jesus, is actually it's about something people wouldn't expect, which is that we don't have the original copies of the New Testament. Yeah. We have so when the authors wrote something, whoever wrote the book of Revelation wrote this thing, and we don't have that thing he wrote. We have copies made later by scribes, and we actually don't have the first copies or copies of the copies of the copies of the copies. We have copies from centuries later, and all these copies we have are different from each other. They have different wordings for different verses, and so scholars have to figure out, well, what did the author write, because we don't have his writing, and there are places where we don't know. And just for as an example, I mean, when you mentioned 666, in some of our surviving copies, it's not 666, it's 616.
Oh wow!
Which isn't as interesting. But if you spell that name Caesar Nero, there's two ways to spell it: Kaiser Neron with a noon at Hebrew noon at the end, or without the noon. And the noon is worth 50. So without the noon, it's 616. So some manuscripts say 666, some say 616, and either one, that's talking about Nero.
Maybe the guy was just lazy the second time around. He's like, I just make the 616.
Just left it off.
Maybe he just left the loop on it.
Fell asleep. A lot of that happens. They make a lot of mistakes. There are hundreds of thousands of differences in our manuscripts.
Yeah. It could have been high. So there's that.
Well, it's kind of, technically possible.
That's some fermented.
Could have been a
whatever
Martian.
was.
I don't know
They weren't good at refrigerating stuff back then. That's all I'm saying. It could have been something.
No,
fermented.
That's true. No, that's a good point. Good point. Yeah.
I've been high and written stuff. I've been drunk too and written stuff. So there's that. I don't know, but I think it's interesting all this stuff you do. So overall, do Christians like your work, or is it? How does that work out for you?
Well, evangelical and fundamentalists do not like my work. Some evangelicals do, more liberal evangelicals, but a lot of Christians do like my work very much because within Christianity there are very major differences from one Christian group to another. And fundamentalists really, they're not the majority of Christians in the world. They just happen to be the loudest ones. Oh. And they convince people of a lot of things that are just not true. And so people who aren't fundamentalists who are Christians, which is the majority of Christians in the world, many of them actually like my stuff a lot because it's showing that their more liberal views are justified. And fundamentalists, for example, have convinced everybody in my part of the world that if you don't believe in the Bible, you can't be a Christian. That's just crazy. That's crazy talk. But it's what fundamentalists say. And so everybody who's not a Christian thinks it's true. It's not true at all. For most of history, people haven't believed in the Bible and been a Christian. They've been Christians. They follow, they believe in Christ. They don't believe in the Bible. Yeah. So anyway, what I'm saying is fundamentalists don't like this kind of stuff because it's completely threatening to them. And part of my book is showing where fundamentalism actually came from, because it came from this idea that the book, in part, the idea that the Bible is predicting when the end is coming. That's what, in the 1890s, that led to American fundamentalism.
I'm leading up to something on this, but what do Mormons think of your work? Because Mormons kind of believe that I think the Garden of Eden was in Mississippi. I don't know. It could be there. Who knows? In Missouri, and like maybe the end of the world's going to be there. That was like Joe Smith's thing when he wasn't chasing young girls around. Yeah.
Well, this book we mentioned earlier, Misquoting Jesus, about how scribes had changed their manuscripts, so it's hard to know what the originals said. Yeah. There are two groups of religious folk who really, really like that book and use it. One is the Mormons, and the other are the Muslims. And they both use it for their missionary work because Mormons have used it to say that, in fact, the Book of Mormon is, that's the final scripture. And the Muslims use it to say, yeah, you got that problem with the Christian Bible, but the Quran has no mistakes in it, period. Boom, nothing. And so they use me to kind of convince people to become, Muslim or to become Mormon.
Because you point out the mistakes in the Bible.
Yeah, point out the mistakes, and point out the mistakes.
Yeah, they say that about the Mormon Church Bible, but it's been autocorrected like 50,000 times. In fact, I think it's about 4,000 plus times. And then in recent years, they had to clean it up some more for some of the racist stuff that was in it. But I kind of bring that up. The lead-in was it just recently there was here in Utah, the legislature that they passed a law where you couldn't have certain books that talked about some nasty sexuality and some evilness and stuff like that going on. Some what's a joke word I can use? Some fornicating. Some fornicating going on. That was bad, and evidently somebody used it against them. I believe the Church of Satan did that in Florida too, but they used the law to get the Bible banned from like libraries and schools or something. Yeah, and it kind of backfired on the people that were trying to just push the Bible and nothing else.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing how many people really believe in the Bible who've never read it.
Sounds like the Constitution, too.
No, it's absolutely true of the Constitution, but I mean, including presidents. I said, "Whoa, wow, really?"
Assuming that Andrew Jackson wasn't, whatever, one of those Jacksons, the Jackson 5, I think. Michael wasn't on drugs when he
wasn't Michael, but yeah, it was one of those.
Was it Michael?
No, it wasn't Michael.
Was it Janet? No, I'm just kidding. We're just doing jokes here, folks. So this has been wonderful to have you on the show and ruin everyone's musical lyrics and music. And now I'm just going to have to listen to fucking Celine Dion all the time. All right. And if that doesn't prompt the end of the world, God help us all.
Good luck with that.
I don't know what's going on there. That or Justin Bieber. So anything more you want to tease out on the book? I think this is one wonderful insight.
Well, just, if people do wonder about anything, the Book of Revelation is a really mysterious book to many people. I try to explain it in very simple terms, explain what it really does mean, and to try and show that both that it's not predicting our future, but also that its message is very, very troubling. when you actually read it carefully, it's a disturbing book. And I don't think I don't think Jesus would have recognized this author as one of his followers.
Yeah.
But apart from that, there's also the fact that these kinds of misreadings actually affect our lives. They affect our lives, not just people who are believers, but just everybody. And I show why in the book about what kind of carnage it's caused and what kind of. I mean, it has not had a good effect on a lot of social and political policies in the U.S.
Yeah, in fact, there was kind of a point where during the Bush administration, George Bush, I think this is reported and take it for whatever it's worth. I don't ever try and quote too many facts because, stuff like this, you wonder. But there was kind of a suggestion or rumor that the Bush administration, George Bush, kind of felt like they were biblically in the final times. And that affected their policy making.
Yeah. Well, Ronald Reagan certainly did.
Yeah.
And he and Caspar Weinberger, his defense secretary, really thought the bombs were going to fly. And W, of course, was a born again Christian who believed in the Bible. And you really don't want foreign policy to be dictated by the Book of Revelation.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's one of the problems of the hellfire and damnation politicians is, they really buy into that stuff, and it leads their thinking and stuff. So, but now you've debunked all that. We'll send a copy to Mr. Weinberger, and I believe he was in both administrations, the George Bush administration, George W. Bush, and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was clearly trying to sleep through Armageddon if it came. Along with most of his meetings in the White House, from what I understand. But then, so was George Bush. Maybe George Bush's interpretation was getting shoes thrown at him was going to be the end of the world in Iraq there. So there's that. So this has been great to clear up. And I got to tell you, you've lifted just a huge worry off my thing. And now every time one of my relatives says something about the end of the world, I'm going to hit them with your book across the face and then tell them to read it. I won't do that. We don't condone violence here, folks. Those are jokes. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show, Bart. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. And give us a .com so people can find you on the internet and the Kardashians can sue both of us.
Right. So my main website is bartehrman.com, and I do online courses and lectures that people can check out. I also do a blog 5 times a week that actually raises money for charity, and it's just ehrmanblog.org.
There you go. And you've got a great YouTube channel. We should give a plug to that thing as well.
Go for it.
There you go. He's like okay. all humble about it. But no, it's a great channel, and he goes on there and talks about all that brilliant stuff. But buy his books first, damn it, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to move books. Anyway, it's the editor's pick of Best of History on Amazon Prime right now. March 21st, 2023, Armageddon, What the Bible Says About the End. And thanks to Bart Ehrman for being on the show with us today. He's ruined all the plugging that I do about telling people they need to subscribe to the podcast before the end of the world Armageddon comes, or else. Now I'll never be able to use that line. But in the meantime, now that you know that the world's going to keep going, subscribe to the show. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, goodreads.com/Chris Voss, and LinkedIn. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. There's no Armageddon. We'll see you next time.